The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas is a short story by Ursula K. Guin that explores an amazing, wonderful utopia that just has one tiny problem. The most popular interpretation of this story is that it's a moral dilemma, but I think there's a more interesting interpretation which I will talk about at the end. First, let me introduce you to the great utopian city of Omelas. It's a beautiful city next to the sea and surrounded by mountains. Whether you prefer surfing or hiking, Omelas is the place to be. The buildings have mind-blowing architecture, and the parks are filled with lush, soft, emerald green grass. It's the morning of the summer festival, so there's music playing everywhere. There's a parade in the streets, and everyone's dancing and having a good time. The children are playing in the green fields, and some of the young people are preparing their horses for the race. In Omelas, there is no king or slaves or weapons. There's no stock exchange or advertising. The city doesn't have many rules or laws. It's just a place filled with good people cooperating to create a society where everyone can be happy and live a fulfilling life. You might think that the people of this city must be overly simplistic, naive, or stupid to be able to live happy lives and enjoy simple pleasures. The trouble is that we have a bad habit, encouraged by pedants and sophisticates, of considering happiness as something rather stupid. Only pain is intellectual, only evil interesting. But these people are not naive. They are mature, intelligent people who have found true happiness. The story is written in an interactive way where the author wants you to participate too. She wants you to fill in the details of Omelas based on your preferences. So what does your perfect utopia look like? Do you want flying cars? I'd prefer walkable cities, but you do you. Do you want the people to be biologically immortal? Do you want all diseases to be cured? Do you want people to have genetically engineered dinosaurs as pets? Whatever you want your utopia to look like, that's what Omelas is. When it comes to drugs, Omelas has you covered too. There's a perfect wonder drug that will give you pleasure, make everything vivid, show you visions of the universe, and all that good stuff. And the best thing about the wonder drug is that it's not addictive at all, so you can enjoy it risk-free. But to be honest, most people in Omelas are already so happy that they don't need the wonder drug. Eventually, everyone arrives at the green fields. The horse racers start heading to the tracks. An old woman passes out flowers. A child sits and plays their flute for a small crowd. Trumpets sound and the horses line up to begin the race. The summer festival has begun. So, are you ready to move to Omelas? Before you do, there's just one little thing I forgot to mention. In a basement, under one of the beautiful architectural masterpiece buildings of Omelas, there is a room with one locked door and no windows. The room is 3 paces long and 2 paces wide. The floor is dirt. In one corner of the room, there are some mops and a rusty bucket. In another corner of the room, there's a child who looks about 6 but is nearly 10. The child is feeble-minded. It might have been born this way, or it might have gotten this way through fear, malnutrition, and neglect. The child is afraid of the mops, so it sits far away from them. The door is almost always locked, but sometimes the door opens and there are people there. One of them might kick the child to make it stand up. The others stare at it with disgust. They fill the food bowl and water jug and lock the door again. The people never say anything, but the child can remember sunlight and its mother's voice, a life before it was in this tiny room, and it sometimes says things like, "Please let me out, I will be good." But no one ever answers. The child used to cry and scream for help, but now it just makes a whining noise and barely speaks. It's so thin that there are no calves on its legs. It lives on a half bowl of cornmeal and grease a day. It has no clothes, and it does not get to leave this room to go to the bathroom. All of the people of Omelas know that the child is there. Some have visited to see it themselves, while others know about it but don't want to see. Everyone understands that everything they have, their happiness, their beautiful city, the abundance of their harvest, their great weather, their whole utopia, depends entirely on this child's suffering. The situation is usually explained to children when they're between 8 and 12. Most of those who see the child are young people, though adults come to see the child too. Young people are always shocked and disgusted by the sight. They feel outraged no matter what explanations they hear, but there's nothing they can do. If someone were to take the child out of the room, clean it, and comfort it, then all the prosperity of Omelas would be destroyed. To throw away the happiness of all the citizens of Omelas just to help one child would be an unthinkable trade. The rules are so harsh that you aren't even allowed to say anything kind to the child. People go home in tears when they see the child. They might think about it for weeks or years, but eventually they rationalize it by saying that even if the child could be released, it wouldn't get much out of its freedom. It would get the small pleasures of warmth and food, but that's about it. It's been out of society for too long to respond well to humane treatment. They justify the situation by saying the child would probably be in even more pain if it ever had to leave its tiny room. It's probably more comfortable the way it is now. It's better for the child if it stays in its current living conditions, because that's all it's ever known. Since everyone knows about the suffering child, they have a great appreciation for their situation. It's the existence of this suffering child that makes their happiness and architecture and music and science possible. Because of this child, they treat their own children much better. They know that if it weren't for that suffering child, they couldn't have the happy child playing the flute, the young people racing their horses for the summer festival, and all the other joys of Utopia. But sometimes when people see the child, they don't go home to cry and be angry. They don't go home at all. They leave Omelas. They walk ahead into the darkness, and they do not come back. The place they go towards is a place even less imaginable to most of us than the City of Happiness. I cannot describe it at all. It is possible that it does not exist, but they seem to know where they are going, the ones who walk away from Omelas. The most obvious interpretation of this story is that it's a moral dilemma. It's a trolley problem. Do you know the trolley problem? If there's a trolley heading towards 5 people, but you could divert it to hit 1 person instead, would you divert it? There's like 1,000 variations of this problem, but that's the fundamental question being asked. Would you allow one child to be tortured so that thousands of people could have a perfect utopia? Or would you walk away from Omelas? Utilitarianism is a philosophy that says we should try to produce the most good for the most people. Pleasure is good and pain is bad. So you could say we want the most pleasure and the least pain for the most people. A utilitarian would look at the Omelas situation and say one child is suffering so that thousands can live perfect lives, which maximizes good and is the right thing to do. Freeing the child would cause everyone to have bad lives in exchange for just one child getting slightly more happiness. Therefore, we should let the child suffer. It's for the greater good. In fact, forget one suffering child. I'll take 10 suffering children for thousands to get perfect utopian lives. Only one suffering child in exchange for a perfect utopian city is the best trade deal ever. Sign me up. As long as it's not my child. Deontology is another ethical philosophy that says instead of caring only about the results, we should care about the actions themselves. There are some actions that are inherently bad, regardless of how good the consequences might be. So a deontologist might say that torturing a child is bad, actually. It doesn't matter what outcome is produced, because torturing a child is never justified. The Omelas story was inspired by an essay by philosopher William James called The Moral Philosopher and the Moral Life. In this essay, James analyzes the historical origins of our morals. He says if we are offered a perfect utopia except one person has to be tortured for it, we inherently feel disgusted by this idea. If our brains only cared about maximizing our own happiness and pleasure, we should be willing to accept this world. But we feel like something is wrong with it, so we aren't naturally utilitarians who want to maximize pleasure. But is this story really an abstract moral debate, or is it something more practical? Omelas is not a hypothetical debate. We're already living in Omelas. In exchange for being able to watch this YouTube video, you're accepting a ton of exploitative labor practices, like the children that had to suffer in the cobalt mines and factories for your phone to be made. Your electronics are probably powered by oil and gas, so you're implicitly agreeing that destroying the environment and torturing future children is fine, as long as you can keep scrolling through TikTok. It's okay, don't feel bad, I agree with you. Screw the future generations, we are the main characters of history. You can say the same thing about eating meat. With all the suffering that animals have to go through in factory farming, we've decided that all of this suffering is fine as long as we can get a Big Mac. Man does not live by bread alone. He also needs chicken. Omelas is capitalism itself. It's allowing a bunch of people to suffer so that we can live good lives. And despite all the suffering that happens in our society, we don't even get a utopia out of it. We can't exactly walk away from capitalism, so I think walking away from Omelas in this context means trying to change things. It means you don't accept the system as it is, and you're willing to look for a better way to do things. But as a wise man once said, it's easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. Which brings me to the most interesting interpretation of the story. It's about your lack of imagination. The story is written in a weird style where it addresses the reader directly with certain lines. These lines make it seem like the scenario in the story isn't really the point. The point is to make a meta-commentary about the way we read the story. First, the author talks about how we consider happiness to be stupid and pain to be more intellectual. The trouble is that we have a bad habit, encouraged by pedants and sophisticates, of considering happiness as something rather stupid. Only pain is intellectual. Only evil interesting. That is the treason of the artist, a refusal to admit the banality of evil and the terrible boredom of pain. Then she tells us to imagine our perfect utopia, and after we've set up this utopia, she asks us an important question. Do you believe? Do you accept the festival, the city, the joy? No? Then let me describe one more thing. The utopia can be whatever you want because the specifics don't matter. What matters is that you won't accept Omelas as realistic unless there's a catch. Up until that point, the story sounds like an unrealistic fantasy, but add one suffering child and suddenly you accept the city as realistic. Why are there so many dystopias in recent fiction? Why is it so much more popular to imagine bad futures? If you talk about how bad things can be, everyone praises you. But if you talk about how things could be better, then you're being too idealistic and boring. So why are you like this? Why can't you imagine a well-functioning society without problems? Because you've been told that human nature is a certain way? Do people have to be evil to be believable? Don't you think that's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy? The place they go towards is a place even less imaginable to most of us than the city of happiness. I cannot describe it at all. It is possible that it does not exist, but they seem to know where they are going. The ones who walk away from Omelas. The ones who walk away from Omelas are the ones who aren't stuck in a mental trap of thinking that we need someone to suffer in order to have a good society. The author can't describe the place where these people go. We can't imagine it. We don't think it exists. So what do you think? What does the story of Omelas mean to you?